This is White Plains Week, the weekly news roundup. With your moderator, John Bailey, editor and publisher of the daily internet newspaper White Plains Citizen Net Reporter. Jim Benerofe, editor and publisher of SuburbanStreet.com and WhitePlains.com. And Peter Katz, noted broadcaster and journalist. White Plains Week. What's happened? Who are the newsmakers? And what's in store for the future? The views and opinions expressed on this program are solely those of the participants. White Plains Week is presented Fridays at 7:30 and again on Mondays at 7 p.m. here on Channel 76. Now, White Plains Week.
Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. White Plains, Westchester, and the world. This is John Bailey, and this is White Plains Week, the City News Roundup show on the air for 16 years in a row, this being the 16th. And I'm joined by Jim Benerofe on my left, the Dean of White Plains Journalism, and Peter Katz, the anchor for all seasons, with me since 2007. And right now, here's Mr. Headlines himself, Jim Benerofe.
Here are the top stories for the week of June 24th, 2016. Britain votes to leave the European Union. Nation's presidential campaign continues. Supreme Court upholds affirmative action 4-3. Court also crimps what the president can do without approval of Congress, effectively allowing deportations of illegal immigrants. The White Plains sales tax takes a nosedive while Yonkers, New Rochelle, and Westchester County are ahead after first 5 months. White Plains Transit District asks citizens a new question. What do you want in the area around the train station? Red light cameras contract with White Plains must be examined by the Common Council with thought and reason. School district schedules a meeting next Thursday, perhaps to extend interim superintendent as Dr. Paul Freed continues to recover from surgery. Westchester County police chaplain and 2 NYPD police officials were arrested for trading favors worth over $100,000 bribery scheme. IRS lawsuit scam has new twist. The Jefferson withdraws plans for 272 apartments in Ardsley over neighborhood opposition. Alzheimer's disease is examined on a People to Be Heard special, viewable on the internet and Saturday night at 7 on Cablevision, Channel 76, and Fios, Channel 45. Dandy Dan Daniel, last of the WMCA Good Guys drive time DJ, dies.
Thank you, Jim. And we want to remind everybody that the Westchester County pools finally open today, June 24th. So splash away, about time, and bring your park pass.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And
well, we don't know the future of the Playland pool quite yet, do we?
No, it's...
The county had wanted to keep that empty and closed and maybe redevelop that area, perhaps putting in a restaurant or something, but as of this week, it was still empty over there.
Right. And of course, Playland was open this week, all for 6 days, and this was a good thing, and there were a lot of people there enjoying themselves on what was a pretty good week. Now, the big news as we do the show on Friday mornings is that Britain voted to leave the European Union, and the markets around the world are having a real dramatic moment.
You know, this was one of those surprise decisions. We knew that it was controversial. We knew there was a strong let's leave movement in Great Britain. But, you know, you don't think that a strong alliance and cooperative international body would start dissolving this way, and that may be what is going to happen to the European Union in the future. Britain had a referendum, and the people decided on a spread of just about 4 percentage points to leave the EU. Now, they are tied to the body for the next 2 or 3 years. It may take that long to unravel things over there.
They have to go to negotiate new agreements.
We have to look at what is the future for immigration throughout Europe. What is the future for the euro and currency cooperation throughout Europe? What implications are there for mutual defense agreements? There are like 28 countries in the European Union. Will the departure of Great Britain mean that other countries are going to want out? We know in France and the Netherlands, for example, there are very strong let's leave movements. Now, this has brought some consternation at the White House, although as of our recording, President Obama hasn't said anything. But he put himself on the line recently when he was in Great Britain. He came out in favor of the British staying in. It is said that some Brits resented that, having an American president come out and try to shape the future of their involvement with the European Union.
You bring out a good point. Remember the trouble that the Israeli Prime Minister got into for when he addressed Congress, the United States.
That's correct.
For doing the same thing.
The Republicans had brought him over to try to involve him in helping shape their view of the issues here in the United States, and that did create some resentment.
So, Jim, have you sold everything?
No.
Not yet. Right.
Well,
what is your reaction?
The reason John asks that is that as we speak, the stock market is plunging here in the U.S. Overnight, the markets were down up to 10% in some foreign areas. It's estimated that Britain's economy alone lost about $200 billion on paper just overnight as a result of reaction to this. This has been what I see as kind of an earthquake in the stock markets.
Well, it's just a buying opportunity, Peter. That's what your broker will tell you.
Well, the question is, when is the buying opportunity?
Actually, it's a sell short, as you mentioned before the show.
That presupposes that we've seen the bottom, but it looks as if we have not seen the bottom of the markets.
So, Jim,
well, I think it's difficult to tell what the implication of this is going to be. It was going to take, as they said, several years to unravel the relationship. I mean, you could say with the market going down that a lot of people view it badly, but you got to wait for the dust to settle, so to speak.
Right. Or the pound to settle, so to speak.
There are questions of what does this do for the relationship between the U.S. and Great Britain? Where is Great Britain's stature in Europe? Do they now become a severely diminished force in European politics as a result of this?
Well, what's interesting about this, Peter, is David Cameron, the Prime Minister, who said he was going to resign, and Boris Johnson, the Brexit leader, is going to take over as Prime Minister. That's what we heard this morning. But anyway, Mr. Cameron used the referendum as I believe, an election ploy, that if he he would hold a referendum.
3 years ago, he had said that it is the people who should make the decision about this, and he promised a referendum, and so
perfectly reasonable. You just don't do it. You just don't do it.
Well,
it's like rebound.
He did
you just don't do it.
And sometimes you misjudge.
Well, politicians should never keep campaign promises.
Or be careful what you wish for.
Yes, that's right.
You just might get it.
So he
he announced his intention to resign. That'll be in a couple of months. He should be leaving office. It's widely anticipated that Boris Johnson, who was a former mayor of London, would be a likely replacement for him, although that remains to be seen. Johnson was on the let's get out of the European Union side of the argument.
And the assassination of the young woman politician.
This was a member of parliament who was killed as a result.
Pro-staying was killed. I thought that would tip the moral compass towards
many people
did.
did. Many people did.
Did not happen, and it's just really a shame.
We are just at the beginning of seeing what the implications of this are going to be. Donald Trump, who delighted, I must say, many Democrats here in the U.S. by leaving the country for a couple of days. He went to Scotland for the opening of a golf club, a golf course that he owns over there, which had been undergoing a redevelopment. And so they had a ribbon cutting. He held a news conference actually this morning.
Did he tee you off?
No, he didn't tee off. He was seeming rather civil and not at all the usual teed off Trump, even though he was on a golf course.
He's not up for election. He was swinging
But he said that he thought their decision to pull out of the European Union was great. And if you look at that, what they were talking about in terms of issues are the very things that Trump has latched upon here. The issues on whether to stay or go from the European Union come down to trade, borders, immigration. Those are the three key gut issues that resonated with the British electorate over there. Those are also three key issues which resonate here in the U.S. in the current presidential campaign on the side of Trump.
Right. And as we put up our Clinton clock and Trump moments slide, creation of yours truly.
Well, one of the most interesting things that happened this week on the Democratic side was that Bernie Sanders said that he will be voting for Hillary Clinton. Now, we still don't know. He still hasn't dropped out, okay? He has acknowledged that he...
Should she run, I will vote for her.
He's not going to get the nomination. He acknowledged that in an interview he did on C-SPAN this past week.
Well, I heard him last night also.
But he was in New York yesterday for an event. He had an event in New York City, and then he had an event in Albany. So he still is trying to keep a presence in the campaign, even though the primary campaign is
everybody loves the red light.
Yeah, once you get in the spotlight,
a certain kind of red lights. Yes,
it's pretty hard to return to being just a plain old senator.
Right, and the Supreme Court was up to its usual mischief this week.
Well, I don't know about mischief. What it showed is that a Supreme Court, which is deadlocked 4-4, right,
still makes decisions that aren't decisions.
It makes decisions backhanded because by it not making a decision, whatever a lower court has decided will stand. That's what happened in the case of Texas, where there was an affirmative action case brought to try to stop affirmative action from being applied in higher education. And the court basically said that we're deadlocked, and therefore the decision that was made by a federal judge in Texas on this, saying that affirmative action is valid and should be applied in the case of Texas higher education, will stand.
So those are two big things. Affirmative action decision, basically a very good one. You've got to make changes if you're going to get equal opportunity. The immigrant problem is really creating a problem because whoever says they're going to deport these people has to say how it's going to be done.
But the longer range
implication
is beyond the issue of immigration. It goes to the power of the presidency, and just how much can the president step onto what some consider to be the turf of the Congress or the Supreme Court even.
Yes, because when an executive order is done, it's usually to alleviate a pressing problem. Does he declare something a disaster area? Is that an executive order? What defines an executive order? That's what now needs to be defined.
Well, I tell you, I don't know if Trump is going to look on that as happily as he might, because I have the impression that he's going to want to do a lot of executive orders.
Well, actually, yes, Jim, you're right on target there. If you listen to his speeches, and in essence, he's talking as a dictator. He doesn't acknowledge that Congress really is in control of many of the things that he wants to do. It's in control of treaties. It's in control of how much we spend to patrol our borders and things of that nature.
And all of which has to be voted, the money to spend those new projects. And
I tell you, Trump carries controversy with him, because even on this golf course in Scotland, we found out that when he went to the Scottish officials seeking permission to build this, and it's he's been at this for I don't know, 5 or 6 years at least. He promised that he would put up a luxury hotel. He promised he would create 7,000 jobs. Well, in actual fact, the particular hotel he has is a converted clubhouse with like 14 rooms, so they say. And he didn't create 7,000 jobs, he created 150 jobs. And let anyone think that Trump does not have a luxury market in mind. If you want to play golf on this particular golf course, your greens fees on a weekday would be $233, and if you want to play a round of golf on a weekend, it'll cost you $310. That's just for greens fees.
But it's a lot cheaper now that the pound has dropped.
Well, that's true too. And actually, that's going to make
good for us, bad for them.
It more attractive for U.S. companies to do business overseas. So this shows you how complex things can be. I mean, Trump said today he thought that this decision was great. From the standpoint of a business, doing business in Britain and paying them with U.S. dollars, it is great, because the U.S. dollar suddenly becomes worth a whole lot more in relation to the British pound. You see.
Right.
One thing that I think needs to be commented about on Trump, this is a personal business deal that he's working on, and I think it would be highly inappropriate for him to be engaging in personal business deals while he's president.
Absolutely. And Jim, that's one thing that really has not been addressed. Some people have criticized him for conducting personal business while he's campaigning, but there's nothing wrong. I don't see anything wrong with that.
He's also making money on his campaign, unlike anybody else who has ever run.
Now you bring up something else which was disclosed this week, and it turns out that it appears that Trump has been making money here.
His subsidiaries
for example, his campaign has paid him over $4 million for use of the Trump airplane to go to various campaign events.
It's great stuff.
The campaign paid him $400,000 for use of his Mar-a-Lago resort in Florida for campaign meetings.
Yes, right.
Apparently, it has written checks to his children and to his wife.
It's a family business.
They are working on rushing out a new edition of The Art of the Deal, his book, which was a bestseller on its own, but they're apparently going to call it the presidential edition.
I see. Not The Art of the Steal? No.
And they've been printing his other books like crazy, because they've been selling this stuff at his rallies.
Well, I read years ago I read The Art of the Deal. I don't really remember it that well at this point, but and I've also read his book Crippled America,
which he wrote himself.
Sure, he had a lot of help.
Generally, you know, celebrities do have ghostwriters.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a given. It's a common thing.
I have,
And some presidents have ghost presidents.
I have a number of his books. I have his daughter Ivanka's book. I forget the title of it at the moment, but I was thumbing through it. That I haven't read yet, but I was amazed at the amount of books by him that I have.
That is amazing. Well, look, let's go down to the local scene, and surprise, we do have some local news. And here is the first big local news, and that's the shocker of the week. The White Plains sales tax went down 10.4% in May. This is not good. There you see the White Plains total. We've gotten 20.2 million, bottom line there, through May. And last year we got about 21 million. So it's down 2.7% for the first part of this year.
But now, yes.
But Yonkers.
But John, when you did the bottom line there, what you showed was that Yonkers went up.
Yes,
and so
right.
The
Same amount
question
of time.
is, why should White Plains be going down while Yonkers is going up?
But I mean, that is truly
Well, I think you
significant
have to take
figure.
into
18%
account
up.
what sales tax producing entities the city has and what sales tax entities.
Well, is this a result of the retail market in White Plains contracting? Is it a result of people just saying, I'm not going to go to White Plains anymore, I'll go to Yonkers to do my shopping, because when I go to White Plains, I get a parking ticket if my tire is touching a white line.
It's a nervous thing. It's not a pleasant shopping experience. Scroll down Coral Gables in Miami, or through Greenwich. You don't have that parking anxiety.
Well, you don't have a parking problem in many of the Yonkers locations because most of it is strip malls.
Strip malls.
Or large malls. At Ridge Hill, you do have to pay for parking in some cases. You can get your parking money back if you buy enough stuff at certain places.
And New Rochelle was also up 4.3%.
And New Rochelle, in terms of a retail economy, is pales in comparison.
Yes, they had 10.7 million in the first 5 months this year compared to White Plains had double that. Yeah. So,
you know, the only thing, John, the only thing this week that I found more shocking than that dramatic sales tax report was what happened in Washington on Capitol Hill when the Democrats staged a sit-in in the House of Representatives.
Like old times.
I tell you, it was like an old-time civil rights sit-in. It was dramatic. For 24, 25 hours, they occupied the well of the House because they wanted to vote on gun control. Now, they may get it. There may actually be something
don't you
going
really
on.
feel this is a ploy so that both houses get a chance to say, hey, see, we've finally done something on gun control?
They might, because Senator Susan Collins of Maine has put together a bipartisan bill in the Senate which may actually stand a chance of passing and then be sent over to the House.
Right, and then they could say, we've made a start on this important issue. It's about time.
Anyway, they continue to make a start down at the train station. They've asked a new question seeking
and
public
here's the
opinion.
question. What new service, store, or amenity would make the transit district more attractive to you?
You can go onto the city's website.
And I put my answer in right there, which is
a hotel and convention center. Yeah.
Larger than any other hotel in Worcester, so we can repeat. Or how about a sports arena to compete with the sports arenas that are all around us? And then the I want to point this out, that was graduation at White Plains High School last night, Thursday, and it was over at the county center. This is what graduation looked like back in 1955.
Unfortunately, the new superintendent, Paul Freed, couldn't be there because of his
We don't
illness.
think he was, anyway.
And we found out, or John found out, that the illness actually involved some surgery, but we still don't know the nature of that.
Freed is on the right, and that is Timothy Connors, who was pinch hitting for him.
As the acting superintendent, he's been in temporarily. They may extend his contract in a meeting, but again,
well, we don't know. We have to
details.
wait to the details on that. And now the Westchester County Police Chaplain and 2 NYPD police officials were arrested for trading favors. Huge story. Preet Bharara has indicted some more high-ranking officials, and aren't we sick of this? Does anybody do any work?
I didn't know that Westchester Police had a chaplain.
No, I mean, really. I mean, I guess they all, but I always thought it was volunteer.
Have you been getting those IRS scam calls? I actually got one.
Oh yes, I got 2 on my cell phone.
Yeah.
And apparently there's something new is going on with that.
Yes, they now say this is your final warning. You need to get in touch and call this number.
Yeah, well, that's the
area code 315. And the point would be, it sounds very official, but this is a scam.
The IRS never contacts you by phone. It's
no, they
in
send
writing.
you letters because that's the legal way to do it.
And so apparently the scammers who have been running this are located outside of the U.S. but have bilked people out of tens of millions of dollars.
Well, they want your
I'd
account.
seen $40 million as being one figure that the IRS knows about that these scammers have gotten away with.
Now, neighborhood opposition was able to kill 272 apartments in Ardsley. Paul Feiner, the supervisor of Greenberg, announced this week.
And speaking of neighborhood opposition, we still don't hear any movement on the French-American School project, do we? People ask
We're
me
waiting for
what's
the
going
appeal.
on.
We're waiting for the appeal to be filed by the city if they choose to do so. Apparently that's in the works. And now, a sad note, Dandy Dan Daniel, the last of the WMCA good guys, who is the 4th from the left on the top, and also in the record hop that was done many years ago. The WMCA did many of these, and Dan Daniel was a real pattery type DJ in the late afternoons on WMCA.
Hugely popular when radio was something you
4
could
to
listen
7 p.m.
Yeah.
Right. And
on WMCA, when it was a music station years and years and years ago.
Yes.
He was 82 years old, I believe.
And he always signed off saying, "I love you, especially you." Size 9.
And size 9 was his wife.
Yes, right. Very, very nice tribute. Funny how.
And you'll be signing
really
on.
miss
You'll
these
be
guys.
signing on the radio.
Yes,
this week
and WVOX as usual, and lots to
1460
talk
on
about.
your AM dial. You can hear John 7:35 on Tuesday mornings.
And check out People to Be Heard on the WhitePlainsWeek.com website. We talk about Alzheimer's disease and its rapid growth with 2 executives from the Alzheimer's Association, which had a successful fundraiser last Monday. John Bailey, Jim Benerofe, Peter Katz. Good night for White Plains Week.
Good night.
White Plains Week has been a presentation of White Plains Citizen Net Reporter, WPCNR.com, in cooperation with Channel 76. Comments may be emailed to WPCNR@AOL.com. The copyrighted print White Plains Cityscape by Leonard Weber is used courtesy of the White Plains Presbyterian Church. For information on its availability, you may contact the church at 761-8585. The views and opinions expressed on the preceding program were solely those of the participants. White Plains Week is presented Fridays at 7:30 and again on Mondays at 7 p.m. here on Channel 76. For White Plains Week, this is Seth Beneroff speaking.